What's up, y'all? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of New Jersey. This is season 13, episode, I want to say 12, and I feel like it is. All I can say, y'all, is Margaret. Ooh, Margaret cleared. Ooh. So let's get into it. All right, y'all. So the episode opens up and we're still in Ireland. We actually get to meet Paulie's family. We meet his mom and his two sisters. They'd stopped by the castle. All the ladies were excited to meet them, especially Dolores was excited to see his mom because I guess they've had interactions beforehand. But everyone was really nice and respectful towards all three of the ladies that came. I thought it was interesting to find out that all of Paulie's family lives in Ireland. Like, they had thick Irish accents. And when we met Paulie, I just assumed that he was Irish American because I didn't really, you don't hear the Irish accent from him. So I am interested to know like how long he's been in America. Because, some people, leave their home country and come to America like at the age of like 18 and 19 or like in their 20s and they lose their accent or it comes and goes as they speak. But like you don't really hear it with Paulie. So I do wonder how long he's been in America because we find out that his whole family still lives in Ireland. So while they're sitting at the table, the breakfast table eating, they're all just sharing stories about Paulie. All the ladies said they like him. Jennifer's like, yo, we trying to plan the wedding because we really want them to stay together. We find out that Paulie and his sisters are really close. Jennifer asks Paulie's mom, well, what did you think about Dolores? And the mom said, I thought she was a hussy. And then Melissa brings up how Joe and Teresa's mom, when they were like, I guess on a vacation or a family vacation, Melissa was like laying in the bed or something, whatever she had on. The mom called her a hussy, but in Italian. And Teresa laughed it off because she was like, yeah, my parents were like that. And she even gave Melissa a compliment where she was like, oh, Melissa was really good with my parents. Like, she had a good relationship with them. And Melissa was kind of taken aback, like, girl, Teresa ain't never gave me a compliment. And I'm going to talk about that with Melissa as we go on. But Melissa, as much as Margaret is telling Danielle that she can't let stuff go, Melissa can't let stuff go either. So Margaret pretty much read Melissa at the end of this episode and Teresa while sitting at that table. But everyone's just like, enjoying the conversation. We find out that Paulie is like really close with his sisters, and Danielle at the end of the table is kind of getting emotional listening to the family tell stories about how close they are with each other. And throughout this whole entire episode, it made me realize that Danielle's situation with her brother is actually a lot deeper than we all thought. Like, I already knew it was a lot deeper than the whole Instagram thing, but in the beginning, I felt like she was just trying to put on for it. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like have a storyline to mirror Teresa and Melissa's situation and stuff like that. But the way that she was getting emotional, especially at the table when they were at the farm, and she was like doing that crying where you can't really speak. And I've done that before when I'm really hurt. I was like, dang, sis, you really miss your brother. Like, you really miss that man. So she was upset throughout this whole entire episode. But it was a cute scene. So the next couple of scenes we see is happening all at this farm that they're going to. Because it's the last day of their trip in Ireland, I guess they decided to visit an Irish farm. I don't know. It seemed like a good time. I like animals, so I wouldn't have been turned off of it. I probably would have had a good time. The farm actually looked really pretty. So while they're there, they decide to paint Teresa's life. And before they painted her life, Teresa gets emotional and she's like, all I saw was bars. She was like, please don't put bars on there. Pretty much saying, please don't put me going to jail as me going to jail in my life story. Even though like that is a part of her life story, it's understandable why she would not want that on there. So she starts to cry. They're like, oh girl, we wouldn't do you like that. So she goes outside. The host or the guy that owns the farm brings her a border collie puppy. And if you don't know, border collie puppies are extremely talented when it comes to herding. Like sheep, they're amazing. I've seen a couple of videos on TikTok where I'm like, wow, it looks so cool, especially when they do the drone of them like corralling them in the circles. crazy. But she's out there sitting there holding the puppy, and we see when she comes back in, because she wasn't in there when they were painting on the walls, everyone starts to explain their picture that they painted on the wall. Melissa starts us off. She get real emotional. I ain't gonna lie, I thought it was kind of fake. Like I couldn't see her eyes, and then it reminded of me when she was crying at the engagement party. It didn't feel real. It just didn't seem real. But she starts crying, and she talks about, like, she did one about when Teresa and I guess her family, I always thought Teresa and Joey were born in like America, but I guess they were born in Italy, and then they immigrated or from Italy with their parents, or maybe it was the other way around. I don't, like, you know, their parents immigrated and then they were born. I don't know. But that's what Melissa drew, like a picture of the Italian flag and the parents. And she talks about how, you know, y'all coming here with a lot of love and things like that. And then she talks about in the confessional how, you know, we were all such loving, and now we're at this point where it's so much tension and issues. Then Dolores drew Patterson Falls, and it looked like a high school, because they grew up at their childhood friends. Then I know Rachel drew a picture of like Louis proposing to Teresa at the, like, on the bay. Danielle and Margaret drew Teresa's accomplishments, like her different cookbooks and stuff like that. And then Jennifer did the iconic, like, prostitution whore table flipping scene. And I don't remember what Jackie or Jennifer Fessler painted, but Teresa's like admiring it. She was like, you know, I do have a lot of things to be grateful, and I lived a really beautiful life. She was like, I don't know why I'm crying. And then Dolores is like, you know, love makes you weak. And I'm like, Dolores, shut up. When Dolores tries to do that whole I'm hard Italian stuff, it annoys me, because Dolores be like, I'm hard, but I ain't seen her do nothing. At least I seen Teresa flip a table. And I seen her boss up to other people and be ready to throw hands. But we ain't seen Dolores bust a grape. The only thing I've seen Dolores do that remotely would have made me be like, ooh, she might have hands, is when her and Siggy was on the show and she was slamming on that table and she was like, I'm tired of it. And everybody kind of was like, ooh. And they all got a little uncomfortable because they was like, Dolores might put, or no, that moment, and then that moment when she got in Danielle's face and called her a scumbag. But then again, Danielle ain't flinch. So it's like, it's hit or miss when it comes with Miss DeLolo, Miss Dolores. But Teresa's just saying, you know, I do have a happy life. I'm not gonna lie, when she started crying, I felt really bad for her. And the reason why is, like, for you to think, like, when the guy said we're gonna paint Teresa's life and bars come into your mind, it's like her going to jail still really affects her. And she's been out of jail for a while. Like, it's been years, but it still bothers her and it still affects her. And it sucks, because, you know, that's probably something she never thought that she would go through. She probably, like she said, she never thought she was gonna have to divorce somebody. She never thought that she would go to jail. And people always debate about whether she, like, should have went to jail or she shouldn't have went to jail. For me, it's always like consequences and actions, sis. You know, for every action there's a consequence, even when it's a good one or a bad one, or one that's ill-advised. So, you know, it happened. But then when she was in her green screen and she was talking about the things that she missed, like missing one of her daughter's kindergarten graduations, I think Gia's 8th grade graduation. And then we also remember her losing that time with her mom. Like, Teresa got out of jail, and then like 5 or 6 months later, the mom passed away. So it's like a lot of stuff happened. And that's traumatizing. And it's traumatic to think about all the things that you miss and be angry and resentful with yourself, with your husband, and be shameful. And I was like, I'm hoping, even though I don't know how believable this therapy is, I hope she talks about that in therapy so she can let go of that shame and that guilt and forgive herself. Because forgiving yourself is a hard thing. It is a hard thing to do, but it's something that a lot of people, including me, I have to work on, because in order for me, myself, and other people to move forward, or people included to move forward, you have to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made. So, while she's on the board, in the room, looking at the wall, her and Melissa kind of get into it, because Teresa talks about how, you know, I was thinking maybe one of Melissa's sons could walk one of her daughters. I think she said not Antonio, one of, you know, all these children. Teresa pretty much said maybe one of Melissa's sons can walk one of her daughters down the aisle, and then Joey and them could come and walk. Joe and Melissa and the other kids could walk them down the aisle, and it could be like a full circle moment. And Jennifer's like, "Oh, are you asking them to be in the wedding?" And Teresa's like, no, I don't, like, I think Teresa was just like, saying her thoughts out loud. And then she talks about, even with the situation with Antonia, she was like, I wasn't speaking negatively about her. And then Melissa's like, well, why bring her up? And this is my thing with Melissa. Like, Melissa does things that annoy me because it's like, Teresa is not well at articulating herself or getting her point across. And you also have known this lady for probably 20 plus years. So you, or even more than that, because y'all are in y'all 40s and 50s. So you would probably know whether or not she meant what she said on that bus to be malicious or having a malicious intent. And I do not believe that that was Teresa's intent. I think she was just trying to say, like, that was her way of saying that they're not as close as I would like them to be, and that there's hurt on both sides. But she didn't say that. And Melissa was just trying to stuff words in her mouth. And that annoys me with people because, girl, you know her. You know who you're dealing with. Why would you try to do that with her? So they tried to move on. They're talking about, we're going to move on from the past like they always do. Lies. So while they're at the farm, they decide to have lunch. So they're sitting at this table and they're all eating. And then Teresa brings up how Louis asked Bill to be in the wedding. And everyone's like, girl, he only known that man for a year. Why would he ask him to be in the wedding? And Teresa's like, well, I don't really have family. And Louis really likes Bill. He feels that Bill and Jennifer have supported their relationship from the beginning. Melissa's like, this is the problem with Teresa. One minute you got family, the next minute you don't have family. And I'm like, I can give Melissa that. That's something that Teresa shouldn't have said. Like, sis, you just said like 30 minutes ago you wanted to move on and be a family. But the part that bothers me when it comes to Joe, you know what? I'll talk about that when we talk about the husbros and them having like guys' night at Margaret's house. But they're sitting at the table. Things kind of get a little tense, and then Danielle gets emotional. And this is the part where I say Danielle, to me, like, I really thought that Danielle was putting on about her relationship with her brother. But the way that she was crying and she was like gasping as she was crying, I was like, oh no, like, it's a lot going on. You have Margaret rubbing her back, Teresa rubbing her back. Rachel even offered for them to walk away from the table so she could collect herself. And pretty much Danielle was saying, like, y'all need to put y'all guards down because at least y'all are talking to each other. It may be fighting, but y'all are talking to each other. We're not talking. And like, that sucks for me. And I was just like, dang. And you don't think about things like that. Like, when people have issues with their siblings or with their spouses, I'll say family, like, so like cousins or aunts and uncles or things like that, or parents, it's like for some people, it really does hurt them. And it's a very hard thing for them to maneuver when they go no contact with their family members. They probably want to argue with their family members because it's like, at least you're talking to me. At least we have that understanding. Because for a lot of people, once you go no contact, that means y'all never coming back. So I really do feel like Danielle's going through it. And the fact that she was like, y'all just need to figure it out. So the last scene of them being in Ireland was they were having dinner. They're all sitting down at the table having dinner at the castle. And Danielle proposes this like question towards Margaret and Rachel where she's like, is we good or not? Like, are we good? Are we not good? Like what's the vibe? Like how are we moving forward? Rachel pretty much is like, sis, you call me a rat and I don't really see us moving forward because I don't think what I did was rat behavior. Margaret's like, you out here telling people I got an arsenal out here, and I really don't. Then Danielle is like, well, things people have been talking, the thing with Laura, the thing you did with Teresa, the thing you did with Jennifer. And then you got Jackie chiming in being like, that's not a credible source. And I'm like, Jackie, shut up, because anybody that's been friends with somebody for 40 something years, because somebody in the comments told me that, because I thought they had only been friends for like 20 something years. But like, either way, you've been friends with somebody for decades and like legit friends, like y'all were cool friends until a certain point. the things that person says about you, 8 times out of 10 is true. 8 times out of 10, it is totally true. And I believe majority, I'm not going to say all the stuff that Laura says, because I do think it's completely sus that because you weren't able to get on the show by way of Margaret, that after 3 seasons that you would turn to her ops, i.e. Teresa and Jennifer, and start to tell them stuff that like you're fake. But I feel like the energy that Laura is exhibiting is the same energy I can see coming out of Margaret. So we're not going to play these games. We are not going to play these games. Like, Margaret don't be out here doing the same. I could see Margaret doing the same thing Laura did. As much as I like Trout Mouth, and I know, like, honestly, if I could tell you who I like the most off the show is Jennifer and Trout Mouth, because they get in the gutter. But I believe that Margaret would do the same thing. I believe that Margaret would do the same thing if she had the opportunity. So they're going back and forth. You got Jennifer being like, Danielle, do not say what I told you about, Melissa possibly cheating. And Rachel chimes in and they're going back and forth. Rachel raises her voice first. Then out of nowhere, Danielle slams her hand on the table and she starts to yell. And I'm looking at Danielle like, sis, if you not gonna bust a grape, if you not shaking the table or shifting wigs or extensions, then there was no need for you to get that mad. And the thing about it is like, I got why Danielle got loud, because the last time she got into it with Margaret and Rachel, they overtalked her. So I got why, that normally is what happens when people get in those types of situations. But there was really no need for her to get that loud. I was looking at her like, Danielle, shut up. So Melissa chimes in, and Melissa is pretty much like, y'all are mad at her, but you really should be mad at Jennifer and Teresa. That's who you should be mad at, because they the ones that she repeating what they said. And this is the issue. Danielle was wrong for saying what she said with Rachel when she was like, yeah, I believe she has an arsenal. If Danielle wanted to play both sides of the fence and remain neutral and not be like Rachel, who completely was like, no, this is my team, Melissa and Margaret is my squad, then she should have remained neutral. And even if she felt like Margaret had an arsenal on people, she should have kept that to herself. Granted, I think everybody has tea on everybody because it's a reality show and everyone's waiting for somebody to throw their own tea at themselves. So I'm not faulting anyone for having an arsenal. But Danielle put her foot in her mouth. Rachel, to me, I don't think what she did was rat behavior, but I do think it was messed up for her to run back and tell Margaret what Danielle said, because it's like, if y'all were trying to build a friendship, then there was no need for you to rush back and tell her that. If you like, what Danielle did, in my opinion, it would be someone who wasn't trying to be cool with that person, because y'all were having a casual conversation and it didn't seem like what Danielle said was meant with any like malicious intent. It was just like, yo, she might really do have an arsenal. It kind of gives that she has an arsenal, especially after hearing what she did with Jennifer and Teresa. Like, y'all were just having a conversation. It wasn't like, oh, she was trash talking the lady. And then with Margaret, I get why Margaret is upset, because it seems like she extended herself to Danielle, and then it's like Danielle is saying these disparaging things about her. But I don't understand why Margaret is so mad at Danielle. Like, there was no need for her to, when they last episode, when she was with Melissa at the stores, to be like, F her. Like, it's weird, because what Danielle said was not that deep. And Margaret, you haven't shown yourself in the best light. Like, we just gonna have to call a thing, sis. Like, you haven't. You've shown that you have these types of things on people. So why are you angry when somebody confirms it? Again, I go back to her timeline. She was like, I think it was like, I'm a loyal friend. No, I'm a better friend than an enemy. Something like that. Pretty much saying that I'm a better friend. It's better to have me as a friend than an enemy. That is your tagline. So I don't understand why someone pretty much saying that low key, I do believe that like that lady run, she got tea on everybody, has her that frustrated and upset with Danielle. It's not that deep. The conversation continues while they're sitting at the table, and Danielle even says again, she was like, girl, you brought up that you exposed that her husband had an affair on her. Like, you exposed all of that on her, like, and exposed that about, and she's pointing towards Jennifer. And then Margaret said something about like, why are y'all obsessed with me? And Jennifer Aiden is like, girl, ain't nobody obsessed with you. Take it down several notches. Click it all the way down. Click it all the way down. And so Danielle's like, you can forgive, but you never forget, or you can't forget, or something like that. And then Margaret, I knew Margaret was about to read Danielle because she had that finger up, like that church finger up. And it gave very much like a mom about to like read her child, a mom that's about to gather her child. And she did that because Danielle was molded after it. Shout out to It's Rocks. Like, Danielle didn't have no comeback, and sis just started crying at the table. That's how you know you got somebody, when they just start crying at the table. Like, they don't say nothing back. They're trying to process what you just said. So Margaret pretty much tells Danielle, like, with that mindset, you're always going to have issues with your family. You're always going to have problems because you keep bringing up the past. You're never going to be able to move forward. You're always going to have issues. Everyone at the table is like, Margaret, like, dang, sis. You got Jennifer, Aiden being like, Margaret, that's not nice. That is not nice. You got her friend Jennifer Fessler being like, Margaret. Like, she is so shocked that she just said that. Even Rachel is like, Margaret, that's not nice. That is not nice. And everyone's just sitting at the table like, dang. And like I said, Danielle's face was cracked. Danielle did not know what to say back. And that also made me realize the situation between her and her brother is actually like real, because had it been fake or something that was like frivolous, she would have had something real like spicy to say back, but she didn't. It was like she really had to sit there and process what that lady just said to her. And what Margaret said, in a sense, is true, and it's also not true. If me bringing up the past is the way I move forward, then that's the way I move forward. If I need to keep reminding you of how you did me dirty because you have yet to acknowledge how you did me wrong, then I'm going to continue to remind you. You ain't going to stop me. And then Jennifer Fessler chimes in and she's like, okay, guys, it's our last night here. How can we like salvage this? Margaret's like, I don't know. I don't even want to deal with this no more. I think Margaret low-key was slightly embarrassed too, because Margaret looked around at the table and she kind of realized that like what she said was a bit too far. Now, here's my thing. What she said to Danielle was harsh. It was harsh, but Danielle been knocking at the door for Margaret, and Margaret decided to open it finally, because like she said what she said. They've had several arguments, and Margaret has been somewhat like, it's been back and forth, but I guess Margaret at this point was just tired of having the same conversation. And like I said before, it's not that deep, so I don't get why Margaret is so pressed and angry at Danielle, but she said she had to get Danielle together. She had to let Danielle know what was up, and she did, because Danielle didn't have nothing to say. And like I saw a lot of people online say, I think there's going to be issues between Jennifer Fessler and Margaret if Jennifer Fessler continues to be on this show, because every time Margaret lashes out or says something outlandish, or she says something that she feels is like below the belt, Jennifer Fessler is like shocked and low-key appalled by what her friend has just said. So, like, you know, they get up from the table. You got Dolores being like, you know, you guys, it's our last night. You know, thank y'all for a trip. Blase, blase. You got Melissa checking on Danielle, being like, are you okay? Danielle's like, I'm fine. And then you hear her crying in the in her room with the door locked. And I said, ooh, sis. And one thing I will say is, even though Margaret got Danielle together, Margaret needs to be careful. And the reason why I say that is because just like with Kenya, and I like Kenya now. I used to not like her in previous seasons, but she has grown on me, and I've realized a lot of the things she said previous seasons, she was right. Sis was right. But people used to really when they wanted to get at Kenya, they always bring up her mom's situation, and no one has yet to bring up Margaret's situation with her kids. But I feel like with Danielle and them on this show, Danielle might be the one to say, how can you tell me about like my situation and stuff like that when you have no communication with them kids, the kids that you raised, that you said that you are a mother for, that we've seen you cry about several times on this show. Like, had I been Danielle, I'd have told Margaret, it's funny that you giving me life advice when that life advice has not worked for you and your kids. Like, the choice, and I was like, or I would have been like, I'm not taking life advice from somebody who couldn't be an adult and do the right thing and leave her marriage instead of being a whore and cheating on her husband that has lost the relationship between her kids because of the poor decision and the choices that she made. Like, I'd have said something like that back to to Margaret, but it's the fact that Danielle wasn't ready and Margaret got her. Margaret got her. So the last scene we have is with the Husbros, and pretty much it's a mess. The last thing we have is with the Husbros. They're at Margaret and Joe's house. We have a scene with Joe, Smedium Joe, and Bill, where Margaret Joe's prompts Bill to tell Smedium Joe that, Teresa Louis asked him to be in the wedding. And Bill's like, yeah, I'm in the wedding. Joe gets slick in the confessional where he's like, I'm surprised they ain't asked the mailman. And then when he's in Bill's face, he's like, I'm just gonna let you know, no disrespect, bro, you're an afterthought. And Joe is like, Bill didn't even look bothered by what Joe said. Bill did not even look bothered by what Joe said. So they go outside. We see everybody's there. Evan's there. Danielle and Rachel's husband there. I even think Jennifer Fessler's husband was there too. Frank get there. They all sitting there. We don't see Paulie. And I'm like, Paulie. If you're going to be with Dolores, you need to help Dolores earn this check. Because that Frank is helping Dolores earn this check because they still filming scenes together. I knew Louis wasn't going to be there, but Louis is with Teresa and he ain't really got to be there because she an OG. And it's like, they not getting rid of Teresa. So they're all sitting down at the table. They're smoking a blunt. Like they passing the blunt around. And I found out that weed was legal in New Jersey. I was wondering, I was like, y'all just out in the open with it. So I Googled it. And basically, Bill says, you and Teresa just need to, and he's directing this towards Smedium Joe. He's like, you and Teresa just need to, go smoke and have a good time. Joe is like, she brings up my daughter and my daughter's the nicest person ever. And as he's having this thought, he ends up like forgetting it because he high. And my thing about this whole situation, this whole wedding is like, Teresa could have stopped all of this from happening by putting them in the wedding in a small capacity. She could have invited Donna Marco, but she didn't. So I call BS on Teresa being like, I didn't think all of this was going to happen because we're a family. Joe and Melissa are getting on my nerves because y'all act like y'all don't want to be in the wedding and it's not that big of a deal. And it's like, it's whatever. We're above all of this. But then when y'all find out that other people are in the wedding, you pitch a fit and you have slick stuff to say. When we've seen several times Teresa ask you to be in the wedding. Now I understand the hurt that they probably feel, especially Joe, because that's your sister. And I have a sibling that if she ever got married, shoot, I know for a fact I'm in that wedding. I know for a fact that I'm in that wedding. Okay, I know I'm in that wedding. I know I'm probably helping put things together, organizing parties. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm going to be a part of all the festivities. And maybe Joe and Melissa thought they were in a good place because they ended last season being somewhat okay, that they thought that they could move forward, but they didn't. Either way, it's a cycle of bull at this point because Teresa could have just put them in the wedding, like I said, in a small capacity because she knows this was going to cause something. She had to know that they was going to feel some type of way. She might have not have thought it would have gotten to this extent, but she had to know. Melissa and Joe need to get over it. Either you're going to go to the wedding or you're not going to go to the wedding. Or being upset that other people are in the wedding because it don't seem like y'all wanted to be a part of it from the beginning. Then we have a situation between Rachel's husband and Danielle's husband, where Rachel's husband was like, why your wife call my wife a rat? Danielle's husband is like, he high. He kind of like, it just seems like somebody said something, the other person said something, and like end up laughing it off because everybody high at the table. And 9 times out of 10, when you high, you can't be mad at nobody. So they laugh it off, but John Fuda is giving that he is about to be the extra large version of Joe. So we'll see what happens. He gonna give us extra large Joe with a Beijing. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. Remember to be bravely authentic and hop down in them comments below. Deuces.